Before we start, I gotta say, I love Resident Evil. I'm not a die-hard expert on every corner of the franchise, but I can confidently say that I'm a fan, and I know the games pretty well. So when I watched the trailer for the new movie, I was genuinely confused. My first reaction was basically, is this even Resident Evil anymore? So, for context, the newest Resident Evil live-action movie has dropped its trailer, and it looks quite good so far. But still, there's quite a debate among fans of the franchise because, yet again, this live-action movie does not seem to resemble Resident Evil at all. The newest movie, which will be directed by Cregger, whose work includes Barbarian and Weapon, shows a character who isn't a Resident Evil character that we already know, like Jill Valentine or Leon S. Kennedy. In fact, this movie centers around a courier named Brian, who gets caught in a zombie apocalypse, or so it seems. And not just that, the time setting of the movie also does not seem to resemble the one in the game at all. Fans are divided. On one side, fans are anticipating this film, especially because it's Cregger making it. On the other hand, others argue that while this might be a good movie, the name Resident Evil shouldn't even be attached to it, as they want to see the original Resident Evil characters, lore, or anything related to it to stay intact. And thus, here in this session, I kind of want to know myself, is this movie still worth bearing the Resident Evil name? Because I genuinely don't know what makes it to be Resident Evil, so I come here posting the video to find others' perspective, as well as finding something that I might have been missing. Especially the part of why this movie is named Resident Evil, when there aren't any elements of it. Well, let's get going, guys. Before we start, let's analyze the aforementioned trailer first. The trailer starts with our main character, Brian, who is a courier, walking in the snow toward a house. He is looking for help since he got caught in a snafu situation. Knocking on the door, he finds out that it is unlocked and that no one is inside the house. He tries to use the phone to call emergency services, but it does not work. So he tries the phone again, but this time he calls someone else, which I assume is his partner, or someone important to him. After that, we are shown Brian running away from something and heading into a barn. Inside, he looks for useful items and finds a shotgun, but there is no ammo in it. Then he keeps searching for anything else. He tries to grab a key from a dead body, but the body suddenly gets dragged away by a mysterious force. The rest of the trailer shows him encountering a giant creature in the sewer, a pack of zombies chasing him, a creature that reminds me of Nyx, something creepy coming out of what looks like a barrel, and a bunch of zombies jumping off the roofs of buildings. If I am being honest, I already like the trailer, and I am anticipating the movie itself. So far, the trailer shows the zombie trope pretty well, and I really cannot wait for Cregger to make the movie. Maybe he will make the zombies or creatures as creepy as the possessed children in Weapon. I have not watched Barbarian, but I do love Weapon and how that mystery and creepiness are built. However, whether the movie can still be called Resident Evil is something that I cannot really answer. And from what I have seen, fans are quite divided on it too. If we talk about a certain franchise being adapted into a live-action movie, it is quite normal for fans to expect something that is faithful, or at least similar, to the original franchise in terms of characters, plot, or setting. Let's go through this with some examples. First is One Piece. This live action portrays characters, plot, and environment that are faithful to the original franchise. There are some adjustments here and there, whether in the plot, characters, or something else. But since many elements in the live action stay faithful to the original work, fans are generally delighted with it. The live action adaptation of One Piece achieved success, as shown on Rotten Tomatoes. Another example I want to point out is the 2009 live-action adaptation of the Dragon Ball Evolution. While some characters in the movie are based on the original work, The deviation from the original lore is quite significant. Son Goku in this movie is portrayed as a high school student rather than a disciple, and there are also some characters that are omitted. This, alongside the mischaracterization of key characters, made many fans wonder if the movie simply used the name Dragon Ball to sell better. From this alone, a red thread can be seen. When watching a live-action adaptation, fans generally expect to see some, if not many, elements of the original work remain intact and stay faithful to it. The live action does not have to be a one-to-one adaptation, but at least there should be major elements that remain true to the original work. This also forms my perspective on seeing live-action adaptations. Many times I see adaptations being praised because of their faithfulness to the source material, while those that stray too far often receive backlash. How so? Because it is an adaptation of an existing work, so it should not deviate too far from it. Again, this is just my perspective. I have seen other takes as well, and honestly, I am curious to know everyone else's opinion too. Anyway, going back to this Resident Evil by Zach Cregger, if we look at it from this perspective, fans would expect this live-action adaptation to include some, if not all, of the major elements from the original Resident Evil series. For example, they might expect to see iconic characters make an appearance, or elements of the core lore like the Umbrella Corporation or the T-Virus. Now, from what we have seen in the trailer, those elements seem to be very minimal. And once again, this makes me wonder, should this be called Resident Evil, or should another title be put into it? In another video published by IGN, which you can find on YouTube, the movie director Zach Cregger dives into the trailer and breaks it down. You can watch the video yourself to get a better understanding, but here's what I got so far. And if you have already watched it, feel free to add context if I missed something here. From the breakdown, we know that the movie is set in Raccoon City at the beginning of the outbreak. Zach mentioned that the movie will take place alongside the events of Resident Evil 2. The main character, Brian, is a medical courier who gets caught in a messy situation on day one of the chaos in Raccoon City. Brian is by no means a military expert or some kind of badass. Zach mentioned in the trailer breakdown that he is just an ordinary man trapped in a messy situation, trying to survive, similar to how Leon S. Kennedy or Claire Redfield were trapped in Raccoon City. Because of that, he will try his best to navigate through the city in order to survive. Along the way, he will encounter many monsters created by the T-virus infection. I say monsters here because Zach personally said that there will be fewer traditional zombies in the movie, and instead, there will be creatures that, while inspired by the franchise, are completely new. He implied that he wants to be more creative in showing what the T-virus is capable of, which is why we will see new types of monsters in this movie. Watching Brian in this movie will make us feel similar to playing the main protagonists of the Resident Evil series, especially in terms of gameplay. At the beginning of the movie, Brian only carries a handgun for defense, but later on he will obtain new weapons like a shotgun and a submachine gun, similar to how we acquire weapons in the games. That being said, ammo will be scarce, so Brian will need to search for it. There will also be locked doors, forcing him to find keys or other ways to access certain areas. According to Zach, this was intentional, so that the gameplay nuances of Resident Evil, such as managing ammo and finding keys, can also be felt in the movie. In short, this movie tells the story of Brian, an average medical courier who gets caught in a chaotic situation during the early days of the Raccoon City outbreak. There are no iconic characters here, at least not from what we have seen in the trailer. So the main elements that tie this movie to Resident Evil are the setting of Raccoon City and the gameplay-like mechanics that shape Brian's journey. This sounds solid, but there are still some things that confuse me. The first noticeable thing from the whole trailer is how the main character is not someone iconic from the original work. The main character in this movie is someone named Brian, who works as a courier. From this alone, if we refer back to our previous discussion about what is expected by fans from a live-action movie, this already feels quite off from what people usually expect. Still, to me, this is actually quite fine. In fact, I do not really mind if the main character is not someone iconic from the Resident Evil series. That alone can make the story feel more expansive, assuming there are still elements from the original work present in it. And it is those elements of the original work that I feel are lacking in the trailer. For starters, we do not clearly know when the story takes place. Zach Cregger mentioned that the movie takes place alongside the events of Resident Evil 2. This feels a bit strange because Resident Evil 2 is set in Raccoon City in September 1998. And during that time, the environment should not be snowy like what we see in the trailer. So, how does that work? Secondly, I am also confused about the time setting of this movie. This ties into my first point. There is a scene in the trailer where Brian is shown holding what looks like a smartphone. I am not entirely sure if it is actually a smartphone, but to me, it really looks like one. Question now is, if the movie truly takes place alongside RE2 in 1998, then how does Brian have access to that? This is not just a small detail too. The timeline is a big part of what makes RE2 feel grounded. The technology, the environment, and the overall atmosphere all reflect that late 90s setting. That's why, when something like a smartphone shows up, it breaks the immersion, or at least makes me question what timeline this movie is following. Is this a reinterpretation, a different timeline, or just an inconsistency? Because of that, I am genuinely confused about how this movie is being labeled as Resident Evil. I am not criticizing Zach Cregger or the trailer itself, since I do find the trailer quite promising. It is just the Resident Evil part that confuses me. Why call this a Resident Evil movie if there are so few recognizable elements from the franchise? Why not just make it a new horror movie with its own identity? Some fans might argue that this is similar to how Resident Evil 7 introduced a new cast and direction, and that is true to some extent. But even then, RE7 still connects to earlier entries. The most obvious example is Chris Redfield, whose story continues from previous games. There is also a reference to Alyssa Ashcroft, which further ties it to the existing lore. That's why, even though RE7 felt fresh, it was never disconnected from the franchise. It expanded the universe while still feeling like Resident Evil. With everything happened, it is clear that fans are divided. On one side, some feel like this live action should not even be considered an adaptation, given how little it references the original work. There are no iconic characters, and the setting feels too far removed. Some even believe that it should not carry the Resident Evil name at all. On the other hand, some fans think it is completely fine to explore a new story with new characters. A live action does not have to follow the canon strictly, and to be honest, we have seen this before with the films by Paul Anderson, which were treated as non-canon, or alternate universe stories. As for me, I guess I am somewhere in between. I'm okay with new ideas that expand the franchise, but I do get concerned when they stray too far. For example, I like Resident Evil Outbreak because it introduces new characters while still staying within the 1998 Raccoon City setting, alongside familiar elements from the original games. It feels new but still connected. About this movie, though, the setting feels a bit too far removed. Maybe it would make more sense if Zach described it as a modern reimagining of Raccoon City, instead of tying it directly to Resident Evil 2. I do not mind the new protagonist or monsters, as long as there are clear elements connecting it back to the Resident Evil universe. All in all, there are fans expecting this live-action adaptation to stay faithful, or at least somewhat similar, to the original franchise. And it is quite normal to have that sentiment. Thus, it is fair to ask whether this is truly a Resident Evil movie, or just a monster movie with a Resident Evil label. Still, what do you guys think? I am honestly still unsure whether to call this a Resident Evil movie or something else. Maybe I even need to rethink what live-action adaptation really means. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.